We've got the approval of the minutes, 7/24/17, and also 8/14/17. Has everybody have a chance to look over those minutes? Did y'all find any mistakes or anything on any of them?
I didn't see anything else.
Hey, did y'all find anything? Ronnie? Did y'all find anything? Okay, so we'll have that on the agenda tonight. And then we have the surplus 1033 program is going to be back on there for ratification of that. Does anyone have any questions or anything about that? The 1033 program? Y'all have anything else? Any questions? The surplus stuff? Okay, CCI invoice. We got an invoice for, let me find it. Okay, let me put this on here because I can't seem to find it. Okay. Okay, and Tony, we're going to let CCI and them explain that when they do their presentation.
I can do it now if you want me to.
Okay, if you want to, so they can, then we can go ahead and vote on it. You can maybe.
Okay. So, you want me to come to the podium or is there fine?
No, if you stand up and kind of talk.
Yeah, I'll come over here.
Speak so that everyone can hear.
Yeah. So, I don't have it in front of me, but you'll see on the invoice.
You want to borrow one?
Yeah. For the. Yeah, so you'll see on our invoice last month that in phase 2 preliminary engineering, we were $26,8250 over budget on the phase 2 preliminary engineering, and $2,750 under budget on the storm shelter master planning. I wanted to give an explanation to that and first apologize for sending an invoice that was over our hourly budgeted amount prior to explaining it to you guys. But the reason for that overage is we spent more time in the preliminary engineering phase than we had originally anticipated. We went into the design thinking that we were going to have a retaining wall out front that we discussed during the last council work session that we were at. We did that design with a retaining wall, and then came back and looked at it again and said, okay, maybe we can get through here with a 3-to-1 slope and get rid of the wall. And by doing that, we had to look to make sure that we had sufficient space out front for stormwater detention. We knew we had enough space with the retaining wall, so we went to more of a detailed design for stormwater detention in our preliminary phase than we normally would, just to make sure that what we presented to you guys as preliminary plans was actually feasible, to make sure we had enough space out front for the stormwater detention. So that's why we have that overage. Now, in the grand scheme of things for the entire project, our engineering fees we're still below the budgeted amount, since we've got such a disparity in our budgeted amount and the actual amount for the storm shelter master plan. So, I can answer any other questions.
Okay, then when we get further along in the building plans, the time you spend on the retention ponds will be made up for some too.
No,
that'll be spending that time.
You'll pay for that amount with this invoice, and then the detailed design will be covered under the construction documents phase that you guys have already approved the proposal and contract for.
Does that mean we're paying extra?
We're evening out basically because we were under budget one.
Yeah, I understood that, but it's 2 different projects. But you said you had to do more detailed work on the retention pond. I'm saying when you do the final drawings and stuff, it'll save you some time because you've already done that design.
There will be some time savings, but we've still got to take those plans to the level of detail that can be constructed. At this point, they're not, so It saved a little bit of time, but nothing substantial.
Okay.
Still got the same effort to put it on a stamp and seal and set of drawings.
Any other questions? Ronnie, you already have anything? Ian? Tony, do you have anything?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have our invoice from the auditor, and I think y'all have that in there. It was still the same as it was last year. It was $13,000 for the audit. I need someone to make that
Is he here?
he's not, is
He's
he,
supposed to be here.
no, unless he said if y'all had any questions. He came and talked to Ann set up,
He's supposed to come back.
well, he will when y'all call him, but nobody's called him to ask him to come back.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically where he was supposed to come back this time, but he was supposed to get with Ann on the.
And she did, he
That
did.
budget.
He
Yeah,
did.
we,
He was supposed to
But
explain
I
that
thought he was
to
supposed to come back
and
tonight.
go over the budget.
So, excuse me.
I said, I thought he was supposed to be here tonight.
He just said that if anybody called him and wanted him to come back, he would. So if y'all want him to come back, I can ask him to come
He
back.
needs to.
Okay, ask the auditor.
He said he would because there was so much stuff
Yeah.
that hadn't been covered, and that's the whole thing you were saying, you know, the last 3 or 4 months, we want him to come and tell us,
Okay, so y'all,
explain it.
do y'all want
I can look at it a month and not explain and not understand all of it, you know, explain
So do we need to look at it and kind of familiarize ourselves with it and see
Do
if
we
we have,
get
if
the
we
final
come up with
one
any
now?
questions or have any questions?
that's what my understanding of what we were supposed to do, is look over it and if he,
it. Well, he was supposed to change and break that stuff down for Ann, and then come and explain what had happened with all that stuff.
okay, so y'all wanted to, y'all want to, just,
yeah, I remember he was gonna come back, I don't remember when.
okay, so we want to just table that then and,
Yeah.
And Mayor, if I may, when he does finally come back and you've asking the questions that you all had since you took office, about budgets and audit and so forth, I suggest that you all vote to accept the audit when he does finish his presentation, I'll
Right.
call it.
right,
Okay, and then pay him too.
Yes.
okay. So I'll need a motion for us to table, and we'll vote on that.
But it's not something we're asking for after his Friday. We're supposed to get a report every year from him, and just like it's been happening before now.
Okay, y'all also noticed in your packet that we had a invoice for Tow Monkey. That invoice is for the tractor. It broke down and had to be towed. And he did not charge us for towing. He just, for the labor and for the parts it took to repair the tractor. We do have it back now, and Darryl said it's working fine. So this is just an extra expense that we're gonna have to, vote tonight to pay.
Do it out of the general budget, or
Probably out of the road stuff since it was,
I guess it's mobile driveway.
since it's in the, for the roads. But I'll need someone to make that motion. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Well, that, is that on the agenda, what will be added?
The tractor, it's on the agenda.
That's work session.
No, I don't see it on the,
There was,
It's on the work session.
it's on the work section, but it's not on the,
oh,
on the agenda. So it needs to be added. So I need someone to add that to the agenda. Okay, also, Moody Gus, they have one position that I would like to ask Corky if he will take that position, and us, it's not a voting position, but I think that the city of Argo needs to be represented in that. So I want to ask Corky to take that position, if he don't mind doing that, and appoint him to that board if nobody has any objections to that. Does anyone have any questions on that? Katie Lane, I'm gonna let Corky and Ronnie and Tony give us what information they have on that.
Well, what I got in the package, I guess that was from you, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we're gonna bid it and payments. We're gonna reapply or?
Yeah,
Reapply.
this is a work description, since we're not gonna have any plans to do that. I tried to come up with a work description so we could get some prices, we gotta have some prices. So, tried to come up with an outline so we could send out some contractors, pseudo scope of work and let them price it. When we get those prices back in, we need to turn that into a letter and send it back to Finland. We need to do that by the 24th of September.
That's when
Before that.
extension runs out.
Yeah.
So we really need to have them a week before,
Yeah.
so we need to get busy on that.
If anybody's got any input, please give it.
And what I looked at, looks like it made as much sense as anything. We got a grant from FEMA to work on this road, and then when we got out there and got people out there wanting to bid, we found out FEMA wasn't allowing us near as much to get it done, so we're going back to that and going to reapply for a bigger grant, about what amounts to.
Well, whether we get any new money or not, there may not be any new money available, but we need to fix it the right way, you know, whether we get that money or not. The grant was written to get us back to where we were at before that storm, and so that's failed twice already, so I don't think we need to be there.
And we're worried about this weekend now,
Yeah.
this week.
So anyway, that's what we're talking about, is trying to get it to the point where we feel like it needs to be. Did you see anything on it, Ryan,
No, I
that you
didn't see
thought needed to be changed or anything?
Everything looked fine to me.
You want to send it back to the
I'm gonna send it back to them.
QCL, and we'll send it,
I'm gonna send it to them other 2 or 3 and see if they want to bid it.
I sent one to Blaylock and them.
how long do y'all think we need to give them to get their numbers together?
We told them we gotta have it in time to send it off by September 24th.
Well, we got to
Need a
take,
week
yeah, we'll need at least a week.
before that, so 2
What's
weeks.
our schedule for council meetings in September? Because we really need to get that whole package back, let everybody look at it before we send it. Because we're gonna have to make a letter out of it.
The second meeting be before the 24th.
Let's see.
Really, we need to get
It
it in
would
there
be
soon.
3 days.
Well, no, we need to get it in there as soon as possible. Because I've already filed some extension on that, and
No, the 11th, we'd have to get it in before we have to have it ready by the 11th, so we really need it.
When's our first meeting?
It'll be the 11th.
Okay.
we have to call a special meeting, we can call a special meeting.
So if we can get it by the 8th, maybe I can put something together and put something together and get it ready.
You
So
say
ask
the
them if
8th?
they do it by the 8th.
Okay,
Okay.
September 8th.
You know, 6 preferably, but the 8th is kind of dropped
And
down.
make a deadline, if we don't make it a deadline, they'll
No drag long.
drag
Let's
it
make
out.
it 6, Ronnie.
The
That'll give us
6th.
enough time to write it up.
Week and a half, 2 weeks. What is this? 27th, 8th?
And it's 28.
So we, from tomorrow? Yep. We may just have to stretch it out to the 15th and do a special meeting.
We can do that, what y'all think about it?
And we can take a look one night here quick.
We'll give them the 8th?
Yeah, we might have to, or the 15th.
Well, we can't give them to the 15th that meeting because we gotta get all that letter written and all.
And get it to them.
Get that together, get everybody to approve it, we only gotta send it by the 24th, so.
I think the 8th.
8th, be
That way we
Thursday
get
now.
4 days.
That's a Friday.
Everybody's busy and it's gonna rain, so it's gonna take them a little bit of time to get out there.
All right, well, I'll give them the 8th. Close the business on the 8th.
So we don't have anything to vote on then on the,
Unless you want to look at something.
unless y'all want to go ahead and set the meeting?
Yeah, we'll have
Let's
to.
do
What do
that.
y'all want to set the meeting for, the 11th, you said?
Yes.
Bid opening will be the 8th, so we'll have
It's
to
a
do
council
it.
meeting.
We'll have to do it on the 8th.
Oh, okay. Are we gonna have a special call meeting then before that, or do y'all just want to leave it on the 11th?
We've got one on the sixth, regularly, if not,
No,
It's on the 11th.
The 11th.
if we get it, if everybody gets it in here by the 11th, I'll commit to having it by the regular council on the 11th.
So do y'all want to table, somebody want to make a motion to table then Katie Lane until y'all get
now
those?
we're gonna address it. We're gonna set up the bids and the special meeting, and they can fall under that, so we won't have to have another,
What
add to the
what are
agenda.
we going to be adding? I don't understand what you're saying.
We're
What are we
discussing Katy Lane, and we're gonna set up bids for it. Set up to take bids on the 8th, you're saying? And then we're gonna try to get it sent in by the, have it ready for us to approve by the 11th, the bids. So we can send it to,
So here's what we got. We got two processes. Scott, if you can help us think through this, we got to get bids in, which we're gonna do, on the 8th. Then we got a council meeting on the 11th.
So we should be able to approve everything on the 11th.
That's what I'm thinking.
Can we approve the bid and then approve the letter using that bid
Absolutely.
on the same night?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably not.
Nothing in there.
well, we're gonna do the bids opening
It's the size of the bid.
on the 8th. So we gotta advertise the bids,
Well,
call for bids, it'll be,
I think what we're talking is we get the bids in on the 8th by the close of business. And I can write the letter, then we can actually
okay, but see, we gotta open the bids. Do we have to open the bids in a late, it's considered an emergency, I'm sure, and I know it's gonna be above the 15,000.
Well, you need to, if you're going to, well, it's a public works project, so it's not $15,000.
50,000.
Yeah, it's 50, so you're under that, so you can open it outside of the public meeting. You just announce the day you're gonna open it, anybody can show up at that point. And
I
that's,
don't know that,
with the alternates, we'll work with
that's what they
$50,000.
say, I don't know if we'll come in under 50,000.
So we got a price for 41, and that was without paying.
but either way you go, you've got to approve, if you're going to accept one of the several bids that you'll get, to approve it, you've got to do that in a formal meeting like this.
Okay, so we'll have to have a meeting on that, so that we can open them, so you can see them to do the letter.
You can open them prior to the public meeting. You can come with a recommendation.
Oh, can we?
Yeah,
Okay, I thought.
yeah, you can just announce the opening is gonna be on this day and this time. You can open them, and then bring them to council, the next opportunity to
Get
get.
these those and find into it. That's exactly right. Well,
So we can open them on the 8th and,
Absolutely.
okay.
And
That's
the-
right.
Yeah, anybody can
And
show
do
up.
we have to,
We
do we
can
have
do
to
it in
post a
the-
meeting for that?
we can do it
or
in the-
anything? No?
Office, the clerk's office in here with her and a couple more here to witness it, all it takes.
So takes, anybody can show up and,
Anybody wants to be there can.
Just say we're going to have another meeting on the 8th and open the bid?
no, you don't have to do that. I mean, you can.
No,
It's a bid opening, and whoever's gonna open the bids are gonna.
You and the clerk and Tony and me or anybody, and everybody who wants to be there can be there. It's a public bid, but it's not an official council meeting.
Yes, no action.
Okay.
The official action can be taken on the 11th.
And you make, you and I can probably make a recommendation on the letter, how the letter typed up
4 o'clock on the 11th. Okay.
On the 8th?
on the 8th.
That's good here.
You say the 8th's on a Friday.
So we'll need to either have it, I don't have to be here, but if y'all want to have it at 4 o'clock, make the bid open at 4 o'clock, or we make it at 5.
It don't matter.
Let's do it at 5, that way we give everybody time to get here.
Well, it's better to have it while the clerk's here.
I guess so. So 4?
Is that okay, Don?
I will be here, but that's okay. I don't have to be here.
You can come.
Is that all right with everybody else, 4 o'clock?
You and Ronnie will be here.
You'll be the one
Those cases will be-
to rub it all up.
Yeah, that's all I got information on.
Let's do it at 5.
Five,
Yeah, do
five.
it at 5 so they can see. We wrote it all up, and somebody's got questions.
Do you mind staying an extra hour to open that?
Yeah, I mean, it don't Wednesday. I've got.
Tony, would you rather be here then for that?
I'd rather be here if we can.
That's
Okay.
fine. Let's just do it.
So we're gonna do it at 5 o'clock?
Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
he wrote up the specs, and if anybody's got questions, if anybody that's been, got questions, we need to be able to answer their questions.
So I
Okay.
hope when they have to 5 o'clock on Friday, I hope you got me before.
But when they open the bids, there's a lot of times there's a conflict. Somebody thinks it was one way and somebody the other.
Okay, next we've got, is anything else on the Katy Lane? Was everything settled with it?
That's it. There's complaint about some limbs and potholes.
We can't do anything about those right now.
We need to
Go
not do
look at it.
anything until we
Go look at it.
get the bridge fixed.
Did y'all have anything else on Katy Lane?
So are y'all tabling, y'all aren't voting on anything?
No, we're
We're gonna
gonna,
vote to take
we're gonna,
bids.
yeah, take the bids on the 8th
Okay.
and open them at 5 o'clock. And then the action will be taken on the bids on the 11th. Okay, next is our feasibility study, Highway 11, J.T. Murphy and Richard Coggle, is that?
Call. Richard's got some handouts he's gonna pass around to you guys.
Hope I pronounced that right. Thank you. Probably not me answering that.
Yeah.
And I do have a few extras, if anybody else in the audience would like one.
As Richard is passing these out, as you guys recall, we've made a couple of presentations to you guys on the Apple brand traffic study out there on Highway 11. And we told you that it'd be kind of three-phase. You have the immediate improvements, short-term improvements, and long-range improvements. And as part of that, Richard and Skipper Consulting, they've gone through the process. They got the traffic counts done earlier in the year before school got out for summer. They did the traffic counts, and through the summer, they've come up with some immediate improvements. And instead of waiting to go all the way through the process of developing short-term and long-range improvements, we thought that we would come here and present to you guys the immediate improvements that they've come up with. I think Richard will tell you that there's some immediate improvements that he thinks will go a long way for helping some of the traffic out there. But I'll let him explain. He's the expert.
Thank you, JT. Pleasure being here again to address you on this Apple study that's been funded by you and St. Clair County along with Buddy RPC. I've handed out a short document which is the text of our immediate improvement. This is actually the first part of a three-part document, as JT said. There will be another document that we anticipate will be done in about a month. Well, first of all, this is immediate improvements, and immediate improvements are improvements that, in our opinion, can be done quickly, it can be done at a very low cost, and would be done with local funds. The next document that we anticipate will be ready in about a month are short-term improvements. And short-term improvements are improvements that would typically be done using state and federal funding, but going through the normal process in which Argo would participate at some amount agreed upon with the Alabama Department of Transportation. And that's going to be things like shorter short-term improvements, which might be turn lanes, and then a project, a drawing that we're already working on right now is a longer short-term improvement, which would be a widening of Highway 11, or between what I call Argo Parkway and Argo Margaret Road. So we're working on that analysis and plans right now. The third part document, which is, will come very quickly after that, are what we would call long-range improvements. Those are improvements that would take typical funding outside of the normal federal aid and state aid process. And what we're particularly focused on there is a plan of finding a way to bridge over the railroad tracks to alleviate the traffic congestion caused by the current grade crossing on Argo Margaret Road right off Highway 11. So, like I said, this is the first of the three documents. If you look on page 2 of the document, I'll just remind you very quickly of the study area that we're looking at for the immediate and short-term improvements. We're looking at Highway 11 from just north of Argo Margaret Road down to just south of Argo Parkway. And if y'all have a better name for that road, let me know. I know it's got like 5 different names. It's got Lyles Lane, and I believe Jack's address is actually on Argo Margaret Road. So obviously, it used to be, that's probably the official name. I call it Argo Parkway, and I have no idea why, but that's what I call it.
I think that's what the state.
What do you call it?
I call it Argo Park.
Argo Parkway.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, and that's what I've always heard it at. I live right in Springville, so that's what we call it when we go to Jack's at Argo Parkway. We're looking at Argo Parkway, the 2 exit ramps, and then we're also looking at the northbound exit from I-59 to Argo Parkway. And I can tell you right now that our observations and our analysis data collection is indicating that we really need a decel lane constructed off the side of Highway 59 right there, where we have traffic regularly sitting out in the through lane on I-59. So another one of our short-term improvements that we hope to bring to you in about a month is going to be a project to recommend to the Alabama DOT to go out there and build a deceleration lane on the side of I-59. But I'm here tonight to talk to you about immediate improvements, things that could be done immediately with very little cost that we think would make a significant difference in traffic and safety out within the study area. And those improvements begin on the bottom of page 6. And we have 5 recommendations that we'd like to bring to your attention. I'm sure some of them may involve some expenditure funds, and I'm sure that you will want to consider these for an action at some point in the future. If not tonight, then maybe across the next few council meetings. The first recommendation involves replacing the signal controller, which is the computer that controls the traffic at Highway 11 and Argo Margaret Road, right down here at the end of Argo Margaret Road. The current controller has what is known as a clock calendar failure. Now, if you go out there today, you don't notice that it has a problem because there's nothing that controller does that depends on what day of the week it is and what time of the day. But if you were to open up that cabinet, it would say January 1st, 1980, and the clock would be dead. And this is important because the third recommendation that I have that I'll discuss in just a minute requires the use of the clock calendar chip in that controller. And so if you hear recommendation number 3 and you decide you don't want to do it, recommendation number 1 is meaningless because there's nothing in the controller today that really cares what time of the day or what day of the week it is. But if you like recommendation number 3 that I'll get to in just a minute, the cost to replace that controller is $1,400. It's what we call a state bid item, and I have the state bid contract with me. It's just simply a matter of approving the money, issuing a PO to the provider, and they ship you a new controller.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, sir.
I have to ask as we go along, or I'll forget to ask.
Yeah, sure. Don't mind at all.
$1,400, and then we've got an installation fee.
And I'll cover that under recommendation number 3, but our work as part of the Apple grant would include installing it, programming it and installing it, and programming in what I think would be a very helpful change to the time. And so, no, in terms of recommendation number 1, $1,400 buys you the equipment, and you have already, through the RPC Apple program, paid for what we would do to install that equipment.
Okay.
Well, I will put one caveat. The signal has to be down for like 5 minutes to change it out, so you might have to send a police officer out there to help us direct traffic for a few minutes. So. Okay, so that's recommendation, and I'll be glad to answer any questions at any time on any of these. All right, recommendation number 2 involves the same intersection and that same railroad crossing. The signal operates with a loop of wire in the pavement on Argo Margaret Parkway. In other words, the signal will stay green on Highway 11 forever unless a vehicle pulls up right to the stop line on Argo Margaret Road. Well, what happens is you have the immediate presence of the train tracks, and you have several types of vehicles that are required to stop before they go over those railroad tracks. School buses, any vehicle carrying hazardous material has to stop, look, and listen before they go over the railroad tracks. Plus, you have drivers that go over those railroad tracks very slow. If you know the problem in the afternoon, a lot of the congestion on Highway 11 is caused by how slow vehicles go as they cross the railroad tracks. Well, what happens when a vehicle stops or a vehicle goes very slow over that railroad crossing? The signal does not know that they're there anymore. If they're not right there at the stop line, they don't exist as a signal, and the signal goes yellow and goes red. You probably, if you've driven that way, you've had it happen to you. Someone goes very slow, and the signal turns yellow. So what recommendation number 2, the proposal is to install a video camera at the traffic signal that would look over the railroad tracks and detect whether there's a vehicle on the far side of the railroad tracks. And if it's there, hold the signal green to give a good chance for that vehicle to cross the railroad tracks in order so the signal doesn't go yellow. When that signal goes yellow, it goes back to Highway 11 from anywhere from 30 to 50 seconds. And so you can see, especially in the morning, and we have video of this, one school bus will back up an additional 10 to 15 cars behind it because it's not activating the signal. The cost of that, doing that, is about $8,000. And in general, what it would take is to since it is under Public Works bid law, is just contact a contractor in the area, hand them the sheet that we've already done, and get them to give you a price for doing that work. All right. So that's recommendation number 2.
Any questions on number 2?
All right, here's recommendation number 3, and we actually believe recommendation number 3 is probably the one that will make the biggest difference in traffic. It's on the bottom of page 7. Currently, if you looked at the traffic signal timing at the intersection of Highway 11 and Argo Margaret Road, and by the way, it's actually shown on page 5, Highway 11 gets 50 seconds of green time, and Argo Margaret Road gets 50 seconds of green time. And if you look at the counts in the morning, the counts are 5 to 1, Argo Margaret Parkway to Highway 11. The signal timing is 1 to 1, the traffic volumes are 5 to 1. And so what we propose to do, and this is why you have to replace that faulty controller with one that has a clock chip, is we propose to go into that controller and on weekday mornings from 6:45 to 8 o'clock, change that green timing so that US 11 gets 30 seconds and Argo Margaret Road gets 70 seconds. And those times are adjustable just in the field. We would install those timings and just change it until traffic balances out. Because right now you get almost no queue on Highway 11, and we have a 1.25 mile queue on Argo Margaret Road. We think we can balance out those queues. There's a table on the bottom of page 9, and we show that we're saving, by doing this, about 27 seconds per vehicle by making this change on Argo Margaret Road. And overall, the entire intersection, every vehicle has 8 seconds less delay when this work is finished. The work is part of the Apple. We would do that as part of what we've already contracted to do. And like I said, the only thing that has to happen is the controller's got to be replaced so that it has a good clock calendar running in.
The
Yes, sir.
clock calendar, does it change with daylight savings and back? Or
Yes, sir, sure does.
Without us having to.
Yeah, yeah, and it's highly accurate, highly accurate. Until it fails, because that controller's probably been out there since the day that signal was installed. What's that, 15 years or so, I guess that signal's been there. So,
Around 2000.
yeah,
Been there a while.
yeah, so eventually there's maintenance, but it automatically corrects for daylight savings time and very accurate.
Is the expansion of time reversed when the traffic is going the opposite direction?
Yeah, what it would do, it would go back to the regular settings, which is 50-50. Though that is variable too. The controller has the ability of having one different timing plan, and we see the biggest differences in the morning. That doesn't mean we can't make some changes to the afternoon as well while we're out there. But the real issues in the afternoon are not signal timing. The real issues in the afternoon are the fact that we have no right turn lane north town and people are very slow across the tracks. It's really not a signal timing issue there. Two more recommendations. They involve safety, and they are both on page 10. One of the recommendation number 4 is we noted that there's a railroad crossing warning sign that's missing on Argo Margaret Road. It's just a couple of hundred feet back from the railroad crossing. Really needs to be replaced. It was probably struck at some point by a crash or a lawnmower. But it is missing. Very low cost, with under $400. Probably something St. Clair County would do if you asked them to come down and do it. And then recommendation number 5, and there's a drawing on this on page 12. When Argo Park was installed, none of the required railroad markings or signs were installed for Argo Park. And so this particular project would be to install the signs that are required according to the federal law. And let's see the price
It's
on
a private road right now. I don't think we can spend the money there,
Okay,
but people up there are talking about getting some stuff done.
right, so,
This might be.
yeah, it being a private road does not alleviate the requirement. It does alleviate who's responsible for the requirement. And it's a significant liability issue. If someone were to have a crash with a train there would be a significant liability repercussion because the things are missing. But, since it's a private road, I do understand that you cannot do that. So, anyway, that's the 5 recommendations, and, we'd be happy to answer any questions, be happy to help you coordinate anything you need coordinated. I do have a copy of the state contract for buying the controller right here. I've got it highlighted, and I've got it tabbed on the instructions and everything that you need if you're interested in.
Would you mind giving a copy to the clerk, please?
And we're probably spend more time and money trying to get the state to buy the controller than it costs us to buy the controller. It's their signal and, it's all their stuff.
Technically, it's your signal. You own the signal. They permit it to you. They, if I remember the circumstances right, they cost shared that 50-50 with the city when it went in. If I remember, it's been a long time.
Does the maintenance on it?
Yeah, you do the maintenance. The city does the maintenance. The city owns it. It's installed under permit with the DOT. And since it is on a state route, the state stepped up and since it was a state route and a non-state route, they paid 50. I believe they paid 50%.
Okay, so we own those
Yeah. We
no
have
turn
to
signs. We own the square signs up there at the intersection that say no left turn or no right turn when the train's going by.
Yes, sir.
Is it turned off now? Those are not operating now, are they?
Well, they're turned off.
We don't, well, I don't know about it.
Last few times.
It would,
They've been turned off recently. Yeah, they're off.
That's that controller one messed up.
Yeah, that,
Six.
yeah.
they're pretty useless, they cause more concern, I mean, confusion.
Right, yeah, they should not be turned off, and the next time I go by that way in the daylight, I'll check that.
I go in through this
They're all the time they're on,
Wait for the light.
you have to be going by when the trains
Yeah, it does.
going by.
They were operating,
It's quicker that way.
they have been operating recently.
Yeah,
I haven't seen
I hadn't paid no attention down.
yeah, I will certainly check that out because that's of great importance to why those signs aren't working.
They're not.
Anyone
They're
have
not
any other
working.
questions? Don't have any questions?
I don't know what you guys are able to do immediately, but at the minimum, I would consider moving forward with options 1 and 3, the signal controller, having Richard come out and program it. I think you'll see a pretty good benefit on that.
I think,
And I would call St. Clair County Public Works and see about them doing number 4 for you.
sign. We'll make a motion and all.
So y'all want to add that to the agenda to do 1 and 3?
Well, it's on the policeman
Okay, yeah, that's
there. All
right.
the, all this.
And we'll stick around here in the meeting in case you guys
Okay.
have questions.
And then a request for from the county for poll.
Put this in and then
Is there anything else?
I think that's all. Appreciate it, guys.
Oh, one more thing.
Yes, sir.
On the video camera, you're saying it's gonna be mounted where?
It would be mounted on the signal pole right by the used car sales lot.
Okay, and a train going by is not gonna mess that up?
No, because the signal is preempted when the train goes by, it doesn't care. It doesn't care what it sees
I
when the
knew,
train.
they got them at the Deerfoot, at the high school, at Deerfoot exits. Cameras and they're way back, but I was afraid the train going between the camera and the,
Yeah.
would give a false impression.
Yeah, when that train's going by, the signal doesn't care where cars are, so that's.
So that was just the us for doing 2.
Let's see, I was on there, instead of trains going by. Yeah.
Okay, we'll read that next one.
Those are digital.
Next is going to be Christmas for Kids. As we all know that we have a Christmas program here in Argo, and Ms. Bowman has stepped down as our chairperson of that committee. So Michelle Cosin and Stacy Allen has agreed to take over Christmas for Kids. And Corky, I was going to ask you, would you like to be the chairman of the parade again with Ann Callen?
Yeah,
You don't want to be on it this time for the parade?
yeah. If we get this Civitan thing going, or chamber, or whatever we end up doing, we can make it the Civitan Christmas parade. I can still head it up if need be. Get everybody involved. Well, that would be the club we vote on.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's the Argo Christmas parade.
Well, it could be the Argo Civitan parade. The chamber does the Trustful. It's the Trustful Chamber. Sponsor it.
What that's worth.
We can get 30 people.
But we can discuss that. Do what?
Well, this is just a suggestion, this is just a discussion, we're not going to appoint tonight, so y'all think about it, if y'all would be interested in doing it. But Stacy Allen and Michelle Cosin has agreed. I wanted to ask you to be in charge of the Christmas parade again.
And we'll work with y'all on that stuff, so.
Mayor, for what it's worth, if there is an organization that can take on that burden, congratulations, I go to help the city. If there is a volunteer organization, nonprofit organization takes it on, we need that liability.
Civitan has that insurance.
The Christmas for Kids is a 501c3.
That's a nonprofit, then it would be a city project.
It's just
710's have the liability insurance for.
I didn't realize that organization, Christmas for Kids, was set up as a, they have a nonprofit board that operates as well.
Do now.
But anyway, they have agreed to help with Christmas for Kids, so that's just something for y'all to think about. We're not voting or anything on that tonight, but they have agreed to take over since Ms. Bowman stepped down as that chairperson. Does anyone have anything else they need to add?
We're gonna discuss the library, right?
Yeah, you need, I mean, you have anything else to add with them? Yeah, it's on the agenda.
About on the Christmas
What I'm
stuff.
thinking was my agenda says work session, and I've got another sheet that says work session. Don't forget that.
Work session starts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like,
But that basically just says that when the work session starts at 6 and then the meeting follows after. And this one says work session. Okay, y'all have anything else? Okay, we need to take a break before we start our regular meeting then.
Vice President.
Ronnie, do you and Ann have anything else before we start our regular meeting?
That's my goal in life.
Okay, they're gonna take a small break, then we're gonna go right into our council meeting.
I'm looking at that.
It's a change order. It's gonna be $3,000.
Looking to see if that was.
Yeah, Rick, anybody that didn't,
If you didn't have
Anybody
public
didn't
frontage, you
hear,
didn't subdivide, so.
last week, we got a call that there was, that the old pipe going under Hickory Valley Road had been discovered during the process of the contractor doing his ditch repairs. He called and asked us to come out and look at it, and Corky went out and looked at it, and so there was a little bit of additional excavation required, a little bit additional erosion control fabric, and a little bit of additional rock, and it amounts to a little less than 10% of the contract, $320.
Money well spent.
It was, looked at it, he did do that work, so
There's no subdivision record.
it was justifiable with me.
I looked at him with that, looked nice, he even put,
There's never no way he could have
he
predicted.
put hay and everything over the areas they tore up, and he put straw over the areas that, Mr. O'Rear wanted to be tore up in his yard, so.
This is perpetual.
Yeah, we had to add it to the gisters and still.
3,500 total, was that the original bid?
3,500 was the original bid.
And that's already been approved.
Yeah, it's 320.
So just $360 is all, $320.
Typical.
Okay, so y'all want to take a break real fast before we start the meeting?
There's three little dots up top, right. Oh, that's your.